We'll talk about that.
It's quite poor. Hello, everybody. I'm Ian. This is Jason. We are Sinners Review, and this is part 2 of podcast 7. I have to keep trying to remember it. Podcast 7. If this is the first time you've been here, the part 1, which you'll have missed what we were talking about, is linked down below, along with all of the other podcasts. They're usually 2 or 3 half-hour episodes, and in this one we are doing famous bands from your hometown. I'm from sunny York, in that there Yorkshire. You're from Birmingham.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm from Solihull, which isn't Birmingham.
Right,
It's just on the outskirts of Birmingham. But there aren't that many bands from Solihull, so I'm gonna do one from Solihull. Then I'm going to take some Birmingham ones.
In fact, I'm going to. Tadcaster is not very far from York. And apparently David Bowie's dad, there's nobody famous from Tadcaster, but David Bowie's
It sounds
dad,
like a place in Viz, Tadcaster.
yeah, it does, yeah. I tell you what it is known for. I don't know if there still are, but there always used to be 2 breweries. One was called Sam Smith's Brewery, and one was called John Smith's Brewery. And they were both in Tadcaster, which is about 10 miles from York. But apparently, according to one of my 2 books about bands from York, which I've had for some years, these are not going to be much use, I'll be honest with you. But David Bowie's dad was from Tadcaster. Now, David probably never ever went to Tadcaster unless he went to visit in-laws, because obviously he was, down in London, wasn't he? But actually, the interesting thing about these books is they only go up to 1970. So it's from literally 1920s to 1970. They were done by it's an oral history of popular music in York, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And I do know a couple of the people that's in the bands in the 70s.
Bowie's one of Bowie's singles. I think he did he do with Brian Eno? China Girl?
No, China
Wouldn't
Girl
have the same ring if it was.
China Girl was with Iggy Pop. That was part of the Berlin thing.
Okay, Iggy Pop. Wouldn't have had the same ring if he called it Tadcaster Girl, would it?
No, absolutely not. And actually, I have another story. There is a singer who, sadly, I think he's dead now. But and I used to be the roadie when I first started hanging about with musicians and learning to play. I was the roadie for this particular band, and the lead singer, after the band had split up, so I was probably 16, 17 at this time. This singer, and I won't name it because it's not fair, but he went down to London, auditioned for Iron Maiden because they were a fledgling band. They weren't famous at that point, looking for a singer, gets the gig, right? And then his first wife, he did divorce her after a while, said, "I don't want you to go and take the gig." And he stupidly did what his wife said and stayed up in York.
It's a sliding doors moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. Now, those people in York who see this will know exactly what I'm talking about, but so I won't name him. He was a lovely bloke. I knew him, while I was still in York. I used to see him around, and he played in a lot of sort of local bands, but he missed. You could say that he missed his moment of fame, really.
Yeah.
So, do you want to give me let's alternate this. So you give me a band or an artist.
You want me to go first? Okay.
You go first.
So say I'm from Solihull rather than Birmingham, so it's like a suburb of. It's just on the outskirts. It's famous for Land Rover, basically.
All right, yeah.
It's where all the Land Rovers, Range Rovers are built. It was, Leyland in the early days, but they do still build the Land Rovers there. So, where I grew up, all of the housing around that was built for the factory, right? The community, the area was all built for the factory, back in the day, 50s, 60s, 70s or whatever, right?
Is this the Black Country? Is it all classed as the Black
No,
Country?
no, no, no.
All right, okay.
No, that's
Right,
the other side of Birmingham.
right.
No, that's like Wolverhampton, Walsall,
Oh,
Dudley,
okay.
Tipton. So that's the Black Country, where everyone talks like that.
Right.
And proper Avamia is what they say. So Solihull's a bit different. We like to think it's the posh end. So the famous people from Solihull, Richard Hammond, the Top Gear guy.
All right, okay. Yeah.
So he's from Solihull famously. Michael Burke, the newsreader.
Yeah.
There's not many famous people who come from Solihull. But there is quite a famous band from Solihull called Ocean Colour Scene.
All right, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember Ocean Colour Scene?
I do.
So
the day I missed the train,
yeah.
is it? That's a great song. I remember that.
Yeah, the day we caught the train, I think was
the train.
it? Yeah.
That was it. Caught the train.
Yeah. So that was so they're from Solihull. So Steve Craddock is the guitarist.
Yeah.
He was the guitarist. He does play with Weller. He's played with Weller for many, many years, Craddock, yeah. So I'm just going to pull up an image of them on the back of my screen if it works. There we go. So
yeah, I have that
it's
album.
the wrong way around, but there we go. Right, so that's actually their second album. So this is the second album that really broke them with the. It's had The Day We Caught the Train on it. It had the one that was on TFI Friday, if you remember the do 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 do. That one, it was famous on that. Steve Craddock went to the same school as him. He was the year above me, and while I was busy playing conkers in the playground, he was always in the music room playing his guitar.
Of course he was.
So. 40 years of, he's basically playing guitar every day for 40 years has served him well. So that was their second album, which was the breakthrough. They did have a first album. So we were lucky enough we kind of knew them when we were all from Solihull. And we were lucky enough to support them. I was in a band called 8.5, and we got a support slot for them across the UK. So we played, London, Manchester, big gig in Birmingham, of course. We went up to Newcastle, Sheffield, Leadmill, all the venues that bands at that time were playing, Norwich, Oxford, you name it, right? So we were, we got 50 quid. There was 3 band members and a sound engineer and a roadie in the back of a transit van, in the time of our lives, for 4 weeks. I took time off work. So, that was great. And it was great to see part of that. They were on the way up. So their musical style was changing a little bit. In the early days, they were a little bit velvet, undergroundy, a bit folky.
Okay.
But then they started getting rockier and rockier. And then their second album, the Moseley Shoals thing, they went full on, a bit heavier on the guitars, funky drumming. I think Oscar's the drummer, really kind of funky. So that was fun. They're still doing it. They've got back together with 3 of the 4 original members. They're doing an intimate night at the Cheese and Grain in Frome, actually.
Are they?
Yeah, but they're playing Bath. They're playing some big gigs. They've still got quite a pretty big following. They still pull a big crowd.
I did buy that album at the time. I didn't buy anything after that. And sort of I quite liked the album, but not enough for them to sort of start following them, if I'm honest. But no, it's good.
Well, they've got a big following, and as I say, it was good to be part of that. They're the most notable band to come out of Solihull. So after that, the pot is empty, and I'm going to have to go to Birmingham. So
that's all right.
I'll throw back to you for York.
So my first one goes back a bit further than that, and so York's probably, and he's probably quite one of the most famous, but John Barry, the composer who did
everything,
all sorts of things. He was in a band. He had his own band called the John Barry Seven, and now this is way before me. I mean, they probably split up by the time I was born, really. But and what I did into Google, I put in famous bands of York, and actually York Mix, which is an online magazine that I used to write for, did the most famous bands and musicians born in York. So number 1 is John Barry, okay. I won't say who number two is, but we'll go through all of them. Actually, one of them I've got no idea who they are, but we'll get to that. You know. But so that's the oldest one, certainly. So that would have been the sort of late 50s, early 60s. They obviously then went off and, yeah, born in York and began music studies with piano and trumpet. Wanted to become a film composer. Died in 2011. It was an OBE if you're into that sort of thing, which, I'm not, right? But he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. So well done, John.
We did all the Bond films, right? He did a lot of the famous Bond movies,
Yeah.
right?
Out of Africa, Dances with Wolves were the other ones as well, because the Out of Africa theme was, I remember, being quite iconic at the time. So yeah. So
I didn't know he was from York.
no, yeah. Oh, everybody probably of my age in York knew that he was, because
Okay.
my parents kept going on about the fact that that John Barry was, they remember seeing the John Barry Seven, which must have been a dance band, I guess,
Right.
But
It was an OBE, I see.
OBE,
Yeah, it was an OBE. Yeah.
So your turn.
Oh, back to me. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're not going to do a countdown then. I thought you were going to do a bit of a countdown.
Well, it's a
No?
count up actually, because I've got it's here. There's not even 1 to 10, and I have to say some of these people. This is from the York mix, although there are actually I have another list somewhere. Hang on. Yeah, there are actually although this list from York mix, they've missed some decent people off, which I will include.
Okay.
But no, I'm not going to do it as a.
Okay.
These are in no particular order. Is yours
Okay.
is yours in
All
an
right, so-
order?
No. Well, I've picked a couple of notable ones I want to talk about. So, and they're very successful. So, if I go 8 miles from Solihull to Birmingham, then, which we used to call it. We used to live in Solihull, but we say we're going downtown, even though it was a city.
Yeah.
So it's 8 miles. It was a 30-minute bus ride. So just some notable acts. Birmingham was the second city, right? And I think it's had different periods in history when it's been an epicenter for music, like some of the big cities, right? You have waves and it comes and goes. But certainly, I mentioned earlier with, Black Sabbath. So, loads of notable rock acts coming from Birmingham. Sabbath, Judas Priest,
Oh yeah.
Roy Wood is from Birmingham. Joan Armour Trading, Steve Winwood,
Is he?
Traffic from Birmingham. Do you remember Napalm Death, the ones who did
I
like
do.
30-second shouty songs? Remember them?
Yeah. I can't say if I've ever listened to a Napalm Death song, but I do know of them.
Yeah, it was like 30 seconds of whoa,
Yeah.
like that kind of, So, and one that I didn't know, but Christine McVie from Fleetwood Mac is from
All
Birmingham.
right.
Didn't
Okay.
know that. I didn't really realise that. So lots of rock heritage from Birmingham, and then of course lots of reggae acts came out of Birmingham. So Steel Pulse.
Yeah, I've seen Steel Pulse. That they were great. This was back in the day as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so they had, what was their song? Handsworth Revolution, I think, when Handsworth's apart. It's an area in inner city Birmingham. The Beat, do you remember them?
Oh yeah. Played through not that long ago, apparently.
Oh, there we go. I think there's 2 versions of Beat. I think they're one of those bands that don't perform together. So the Beat and Musical Youth, if you remember them.
Past the Dutchie on the left-hand side.
Yeah. So they were from Birmingham as well. But loads and loads of reggae acts. So what I'm going to pick and talk about next, which is a reggae act, and I'll just pop up the cover here and give the game away. UB40.
Ah, yes.
So
actually,
UB40 were named. Go on.
I was just going to say, there is a track on this album. I have this album, and I've had it since I had it on vinyl first. I now have it on CD. Tyler.
When was
is
it
one
from?
of my,
80, probably 1980.
Yeah, Tyler is one of my all-time favorite songs that would make my top 10. It's just such a. I mean, it's a great album. Actually, the whole thing's a great album.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it broke him. He was on an independent label called Graduate at the time. So he was on a local independent label, and after that they got signed. Well, no. So after that they set up their own label, DEP International. So they released on Graduate. That album was a success, and it allowed them to set up their own their own label. Most of their albums were released on their own label. They had a studio in Digbeth, which is just part of Birmingham. They had their own studio, DEP Studios. The UB40 was the name of the form. So they're at the yellow you can see behind me.
Signed
that was
loads
the
of those.
signing on form.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was the signing on form, and the album was called Signing Off.
Yeah.
You know, it's quite simple but effective, and it was actually the form. Came out in 1980. It was their debut album. It went platinum, so it was pretty successful. And in fairness, they became one of the biggest acts in the world. Right, they were playing stadiums the world over. They were massive in America for years. They've sold over 10 million albums. So they really went big. They released 65 singles, 65 different singles they released. It's like incredible.
I mean, and
what's interesting of this?
I was just going to say, his voice is amazing. Ali Campbell's
Ali
voice.
Campbell, right? Yeah.
Ali Campbell, his voice, and I know that at one point he wasn't in the band and it was his brother singing, but for me, his voice is just amazing, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's very recognisable.
Yeah.
So you're right. There's two forms of UB40 today. So there's one with Ali Campbell and one with Robin Campbell.
They're still like that, is it?
One's called UB40 and one's called UB40 featuring Ali Campbell. So I don't know what went on, but they're still not made up. So as I was saying, they released 65 singles. What was really interesting when I was looking at this, I mean, I grew up with a lot of reggae music around me, so UB40 were part of that as I was growing up, and it's still like a very much like a dub reggae vibe now. When you hear the bass and the drums, there's just something about it, that lilt, the tempo, that just you feel chilled, relaxed. It just immediately takes you somewhere, doesn't it? So with UB40, all of the singles they released, they had 3 number ones, interestingly. So Red Red Wine was their first UK number one, global hit.
That album as
topped
well,
the charts in the US.
Yeah.
Right. Their other number one was I Got You Babe with Chrissie Hynde in
like
1985, if you remember that.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And their other one was I Can't Help Falling in Love in 1993. So what's interesting, they released 65 singles, but the ones that went to number one were covers.
Yeah.
There were 3 covers, right? Red Red Wine was Neil
Diamond.
No Diamond.
Yeah.
I Got You Babe was a Sonny and Cher tune.
Yeah.
And now I Can't Help Falling in Love was Elvis, right? And maybe somebody before Elvis. I don't know. But interesting that, all of that material they wrote, but it was reggae cover versions that got them to number one.
But certainly that album, if you're not really paying much attention to UB40, that's the album to listen to. I still get it out every so often now and stick it on loud because it's great. It's absolutely brilliant. So definitely a good choice, and great that they came from Birmingham. I had forgotten that they came from Birmingham, actually. But,
so back at you.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to go through. So number 2 on the Yacht Mix list, I Shed 7.
You mentioned them in your Glastonbury one, right?
Exactly. They played Glastonbury, and I have to say, Britpop wasn't my thing. But as I've said before, I said it last week, I'm really pleased that a band from my hometown have done well. They did well in the 90s. They had a few hits. I don't know how many hits they had. It doesn't say here, really. I mean, I've got one of their albums, but they didn't, they didn't talk to me, just like Oasis don't talk to me. The only band from that time that I had any interest in was Pulp from Sheffield.
Right.
And I've got several Pulp albums, and it was lovely to see Pulp at the Glastonbury, as I said last week. Chasing Rainbows and Going for Gold were the only. I think I've got the greatest hits of Shed 7, really. But I'm glad that they're there. I'm glad that they are probably the biggest band to come out of York, if I think about it, really. That's done well, really. There's somebody here called Lynn Dawson, who I've got no idea. Apparently she's an opera singer. Never heard of her. Okay. but I'll leave the rest of them because we're going backwards and forwards. So there are
So
more.
have you ever come across Shed Seven? You must have a story of Shed Seven. You must have seen them in a venue, or you must know
I've never
somebody's
seen
dad's
them.
dog
No,
who knows Shed
I've
Seven.
never seen them. Paul, the guitarist, had his business opposite me, and he used to come in the shop all the time when I had the music shop.
Okay.
You know.
So you met him. You met
Oh,
one of the members then.
you know, I met him quite a few times. I remember
Right.
we were going for when lockdown was starting to open up. The first night out, we went to this curry house on the outskirts of Pocklington, and Paul was there. And I said, "How you doing, man?" He said, "Oh," I said, "It's we were all set. We were all set to tour." And he said, "Then this pandemic thing hit, and we've got no money coming in, you know." And their last album, they did it independently. I think they crowdfunded it, but it did get to number one.
Right.
No, and they were played on Radio One and all of that. So there's a lot of respect for them out there, really. It's just
Right.
I've got nothing against them. It's just that they weren't for me, really. But so many of those sort of Britpop '90s bands weren't for me, really. I was listening to other stuff. You know, I
Okay.
discovered experimental music by then, so
Sure.
I'd
So,
broadened my horizons to somewhat. But no, I don't have any other sort of Shed Seven stories, I'm afraid, because I mean, I did once go to a party where Rick Witter, the lead singer, was DJing. Now, this was the point when they weren't, because they split up at one point and got back together. Um,
mm,
and he was, to supplement his income, he was DJing at that sort of parties. And the only other thing is that Rick Witter had a band called Rick Witter and the Dukes when Shed Seven had split, and his guitarist was my youngest guitar teacher. So every Saturday
yeah.
morning, I used to take Josh down to his guitar lesson in York, and you know Rick Witter's guitarist. So that's it for as far as the Shed Seven stories are concerned.
I just looked up what's the origins of their name. So the
Oh,
name comes
it's
from a
a yeah,
railway shed
yeah,
they saw while travelling back to York. I didn't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, exactly. I have to say, I always thought it was a crap name. I still think it's a crap name, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
But
it's a bit
I mean,
obscure. Yes,
but Oasis is a crap name as well. So
true.
it's
So
you
we
know,
said we weren't going to mention them.
yeah.
You just
Sorry.
mentioned them.
Well, So, yeah. So yes, but what happens is with the name is it becomes synonymous with the band, doesn't it? So
Hmm.
once they
There's
get
still a big pull today, right? They still played pretty big venues. They played Cheese and Grain, I think, didn't they? I'm sure I saw
I've
them at the
never seen
Cheese
them
and
at
Grain
Cheese
not
and
long
Grain.
ago.
In fact, I mean, although
Yeah,
they weren't my thing, if they came to Cheese and Grain, I'd probably try and
yeah,
blag a ticket if I'm honest. Don't know whether I'd
yeah.
manage, but you know,
So you want to back down the M1 to Birmingham?
let's go back to Birmingham. I have been to Birmingham.
Okay,
I had a holiday. We weren't
a
actually staying.
holiday in Birmingham.
It wasn't actually in Birmingham, but it
No
was
one,
close.
no one holidays in Birmingham.
Yeah, well, we did go. We stayed and we used it. We were in Birmingham and we went. So we went to Cadbury World and places like that around Birmingham. Went to places
Yeah,
around
okay.
Birmingham, but didn't actually. It was just a travel lodge when the kids were small. It wasn't the best holiday we've ever had, I have to say. But you know, apart from that, I've only ever been in Birmingham train station.
New Street. It's not that bad to be fair.
No,
I
it's
haven't been
fine.
for years
Yeah,
into the city centre, but I had some great times in the city centre. Every Wednesday, every Friday, every Saturday.
yeah.
Yeah, some amazing times. Can't knock it. Can't knock it at all. Okay, so Birmingham bands then. So if you think about, different generations, you had all the rock and metal that I talked about with Sabbath. You then had all that kind of in the 80s, you had a lot of reggae acts. I guess as you move further into the 80s, you had a lot of notable kind of new wave bands, Dexys Midnight Runners,
Oh, I
Fine Young
love Dexys Midnight
Cannibals.
Runners. Absolutely love Dexys Midnight
Yeah,
Runners.
I mean they were from there.
Yeah.
Still going today. I think they're
Yes.
still
Yeah.
knocking about, right?
Yeah.
Dexys. Fine Young Cannibals.
Oh yeah.
Quite a cult band, the Nightingales. Do you remember a band called the Nightingales? They were quite
The
a
name
bit of a
rings a bell,
cult,
but
bit
I
of a
can't
cult
put a face to
following.
them.
Right. They were on Rough Trade,
All right. Yeah.
or was it Creation? They were on Rough Trade, I think. I can't remember. Was it Creation? It might have been. They might have been on Creation Records, the Nightingale. Actually,
Nightingales. I don't.
I think you would have come across them. It was kind of. I want to say they were kind of pre-shoegaze, before shoegaze was a thing.
Looking at their website. No, I don't recognise records.
So there was all the stuff going on in Manchester with all the factory stuff. Birmingham had some new wave acts as well. One notable mention, which I'm not going to go into great detail, but Duran Duran, of course. Right? I grew up listening to Duran Duran right from Careless Memories, Planet Earth. I know they went all a bit strange, went to the yachts and the suits and everything, but
and I didn't like the Rio album, which I did buy at the time. But at first, my Duran Duran story is that I almost joined, I almost formed a new romantic band with a couple of guys who are still around now, still performing as solo artists. And the lead singer lent me 2 albums. One of them was Duran Duran's first album. And the other one was an album by a Scottish band called The Zones. And he basically what he said was, we want, this is what we're aiming for. And as a keyboard player, are you in for it? I was actually. My mate, the drummer, because there was a guitarist, bass player, drummer was my mate, and it didn't happen. Nigel wasn't interested in doing it, the drummer, and I was interested, but it just sort of like happens sometimes. Bands fall apart. But I remember sitting down and listening to that first Duran Duran album and thinking, I have no idea how they've made this record because it sounds absolutely amazing. And I was into hi-fi then, so I had a decent hi-fi system. But that first album, the songs were great. It was just brilliant.
Yeah, lots of energy, lots of youthful energy. They were doing kind of flange and phasing, I think, on the bass and the guitars. Nick Rhodes, of course, massive synth guy, right? Yeah. He was staying on top of all of the latest synths that were coming out. They had lots of phases. They had that kind of early days with Planet Earth, Careless Memory. They had the MTV phase, right, where they did Rio and Hungry Like the Wolf, Wild Boys, all of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
May not be your cup of tea, but it was great stuff. All had great synth work.
I was definitely into. I don't think Nick Rhodes was particularly a great keyboard player, but he did what was needed to be done in the band, and some of it was sequenced and that,
Yeah, I think there's is it Save a Prayer, which has got a synth motif with a pitch bend on it.
Yeah.
Very simple, but very quite effective and, well renowned. They did a Bond theme, talking to John Barry. They did View to a Kill, of course.
Yeah.
They had spin-offs as well. So they did a spin-off. They split up a bit, and a couple of them went off and did Arcadia, which was more down-tempo electronica.
Yeah,
that wasn't a bad album, right?
Good album, actually. I like it. Yeah, I did buy it. I've still got it.
And then they were spun off. The other half of the group spun off and did Power Train. I think it was big, heavy drums and quite muscular rock kind of.
Isn't that which is the one that had Robert Palmer in?
That's it. Power Train. I think they were called or something, Train. Wasn't it? Was it Power Train?
Power something, but yeah. And actually, while talking about him,
was it not Power Train? Let me find it.
It wasn't Power Train. It was something. No, I was going to say Powergram, but I was in a band called Powergram.
Power Station.
Power Station. That was it. So
that was Robert Palmer.
Robert Palmer, another Yorkshireman, is from Moulton. So
there we go. Look at that. Look at that link.
So I said that Tadcaster was 10 miles in one direction. Moulton is 10 miles in the other direction.
There we go. There we go.
We're running out of time again. We just got the notification. So.
Okay, so hats off to Duran Duran, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You'd have to again, massive band, right? I mean, they got back together in the 2000s and did Ordinary Day, which was a bit of a ballad.
That's a great song, actually.
Another good song.
The wedding album. I've got the wedding album.
So you'd have to say they can write a song.
They can. Yeah. There's one that you might not have. I've already shown you that I bought some Fashion. Where do you think Fashion are from?
They're Brummies, aren't they?
They're from Birmingham. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just looked it up now. Yeah. So yes, 78 to 84. Then 2009 they came back. So yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, that album cover, I'm sure I've got pictures of me and my bandmates looking exactly like that album cover you just showed, for sure. I'm not going to put them up.
Yeah.
So, all right, Duran, I've got one more Birmingham act to talk about
Okay,
if we
go
want to
for
do
it.
that in
And
part three,
in
and we'll
part
go
three,
through.
We'll finish off with the rest of mine because the smaller bands are the ones that I've got left. But
We'll go to you next then. And then
yeah, go. No. Finish off. You do it.
Well, I think we're done. I think just as we're about time out, the one other notable band that I'll say from Birmingham before we break for part three then is Bentley Rhythm Ace. Do you remember them?
Oh, I've got what's the album that I've got by them? Yes, yeah, I've got.
I had a big single, so they're from Birmingham as well. They were more 90s, right? Kind of the chill out, big beat kind of era.
Yeah, I've got the first album, which is just called Bentley Rhythm Ace. Yeah, got it on CD. Yeah, it's great actually. It's a really good album. Don't play it often enough. I should dig it out and play it more. But
yeah, they're from Birmingham. The singer's on TV now. He's a TV presenter, does like Car SOS and stuff. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, cool. Right,
good tune though.
Okay, so come back, watchers and listeners, for part three. Where two old blokes talk about music and other stuff. We'll be back shortly. See you in a bit. Bye.
See ya.